Finance meeting is now called to order. Is there any public comment? Hearing none, we'll move on to the first item, which is county suite. Ladies, gentlemen, please feel free to come up front.
Hello, Commissioners. We have with us today Corey Cass, Jamie Rines from Teleosoft, and Mike is teleconferenced in from Paper West Solutions for Dave Buell's system. So we're here today to discuss a project that would allow the Sheriff's Office system and the proprietary system, the software systems, to share information with regards to civil process. Before we actually talk about that process, I just want to take a minute to tell you what civil process is. Civil process is basically means a legal notice or document that has to be served on a party in an action, a civil action. Most of us commonly refer to it as a lawsuit. That can be anything from a writ of summons to a notice of sheriff's sale of real estate. Basically, once that process is received by the sheriff's office, then the Pennsylvania Rules of Court mandate who serves it, the timelines, the manner of service, the affidavit of service, etc. So our office, do you have the numbers? I have numbers, like for how many we receive per year. Sorry.
Yes, approximately 12,000 per year is what the civil process numbers is what we deal with on a yearly basis.
So with the 12,000 per year, those cases can have more than one litigant. The majority of them are filed in the Pathonetary's office for Cumberland County. So currently we have 3 admin staff that input the information into our software system. The information that consists of anything from litigants' names, addresses, telephone numbers, points of contact, to expiration dates, hearing dates, service information, costs that are applied, etc. So when that action is coming into the Pathonetary's office, they're inputting the information. Am I correct in that? Yes, correct. So they're inputting this information, and then the case is coming to the sheriff's office, and we're manually inputting the information also. Once we serve the process and we do the affidavit of service and apply the cost, we're manually putting that into the system. It is delivered to the Pathonetary's office, and you're manually.
We manually enter it into our system and then process the payment if there is any for the return of service.
So with the integration process would allow it, would cut out that redundancy in entering the information. I would like Corey, Fran, and Jamie to talk about the integration process and how it would work. Whenever you're ready.
Sure.
Absolutely.
And real quick, it would also cut out, our girls to go down to the Pathonetary's office to get all of our papers out of the bin, to physically walk them up, as well as to physically walk the returns back down. It would save time with all of that as well. And it's
Part of the wellness program, though.
Yeah, well.
Quickly, if I could, before Corey jumps in, besides the duplicate data entry and just the manual papers passing back and forth, obviously, whenever you have handfuls of papers walking up and downstairs, it's not the most efficient way to do things as far as, I can't testify of any loss of documents and things, but it's just not the best way to do things. Plus the duplicate data entry. But for us, as we, push our e-filing platform home and push it forward and really, strive for success, because it's really how we make it's really cost beneficial for us, for filers to e-file with us. Currently, if they have to have proof of service, they do the proof of service manually. So they can do all the e-filing they want, but all the proof of service stuff still has to be either mailed in, walked in. So it's a huge gaping hole in our e-filing component, and this would allow this whole process of e-filing to be all manual.
And I should take one step back. Did you receive Teleosoft's the statement of work and the quote and everything? Did you?
I think we got copies of that.
You did?
And I've got copies of paperless
I didn't know,
too.
I just wanted to make sure that you had it.
Do you have that, or would you like it?
I can give it to you. Okay.
And before they start, this is a project that's been kind of like ongoing. It started out down in front of Records Improvement Committee some time ago. And it was because of the software system we have versus the software system that the Prothonotari's office took on, we couldn't get that integration, we couldn't get that match, that they would share information. And it's been quite a struggle to get to this point, but we finally feel we've got it, they have it resolved, that they can tell you now how they can do.
Right, and you're right, I mean, it is kind of that's a great point, Ron, because both software manufacturers, this is pretty much breaking ground that a lot of other counties will probably do the same thing, possibly because you have two software vendors that are technically competitors collaborating for a better use of accounting. But also, I'll be honest with you, this is what I had envisioned happening a long time ago, but it wasn't really cost effective for us to do it. Plus, like I said, there's a lot of unquantifiable things we didn't know. Plus, the fact that now we have an increased revenue in our automation fund through our lean program. We can not only fund all of our part of this, but we can participate to the sheriffs through our automation fund program too. Okay.
Unless, do you have any questions up to this point?
So my goal would be just to summarize some of the things that we've talked about in a little bit more summary fashion. So what we're talking about doing here is really taking the information that's put into the Prothonotary system and transforming that information from the paperless solution into our system. And what that really means is we're going to do a lot of data integration. So we're bringing over things like contact names, addresses, accounting information, all the service information, the attachments that this office may have already scanned. So Dave's office will have these documents electronically. We'll be able to pull those over where they're appropriate and bring those into the sheriff's system. So the benefit is heavily weighted on the sheriff's side of this because what's happening now is they're entering all this information redundantly. And as Dave alluded to, anytime that you have redundant entry, you have the potential for loss of data, errors to be made, all of those things that we really want to avoid, just in terms of overall liability and efficiency to the county. So our goal is to bring that over electronically, and we can establish what we call field mapping, where the first name in this system equals the first name in this system, and so on and so forth. And so that's the biggest chunk of work that our office will be performing for this. The other part of it is creating a controlled access portal so that we can make sure that only the appropriate people with the appropriate security clearances are able to access this information. That said, having just gone through this process with Philadelphia County Sheriff's Office, we're very confident in our process. I think the other vendor, paperless, Mike has experience in this arena. So as Dave alluded, now I think is a great time that our success ratio is going to be much higher and we're going to be much more efficient in the integration process with both vendors working collaboratively together. Are there any specific questions that you wanted me to address, either from the Sheriff's Office or from the Commissioners?
How many hours of state of time do you see this saving?
It takes right now approximately, I'm not good with math in my head, I should have had it figured out, but ballpark it takes about 5 minutes per case. So if you're talking 12,000 cases multiplied by, that's on the front end of it. That is just to put the information into the system. Ballpark per case, when that after our deputies serve the civil process, it comes back, we have to apply costs, we have to prepare the return of service, we have to scan documents and attach to the case, which that information then in turn would be transferred to the Prothonotari's file. So I would say per case, you probably have from beginning from start to finish up to 30 minutes in each case. So when you get into real estate, you can rack up 60 minutes or more in each case. Because it's the depth of, all the steps in real estate sale isn't something that just occurs here And like most civil process expires in 30 days, so you have it started and completed within a 30-day time frame. Real estate can go on for 12 to 18 months on average, so you're wrapping up a lot of time in each case.
And there's 3 people now that we use.
Right now, we have 3 staff.
Now, what are they gonna do when this is all implemented?
If it's implemented, they'll have more time to be researching where the defendants are, that we can find them. You know, if this is implemented, there won't be, right now we have overtime costs involved with real estate on an average about 2 hours per week. So that's going to save her that time. And with the other staff, many times there's, you know, half an hour of overtime each day where they're working through their lunch to accomplish the work product. So I look at alleviating that, with the extra time being able to devote their time to other areas of the office.
They're doing other functions like whenever we go and transport prisoners, they're doing all the billing part of that and pointing all that out.
On the criminal side,
Yes, on the criminal side.
the routes of transportation,
Subpoenas.
et cetera, so they'll be able to focus more time in those areas too.
I think it makes a lot of sense. I mean, this integration and making sure that systems can talk to one another, save a lot of time and effort. So the total startup costs, we're looking here at $28,344. Is that what we're looking at?
For Telio's the startup,
Yes, that's with the integration fee in the first year of annual maintenance and support, so the total startup cost is that $28,344.
So that's the total cost of doing everything here?
That's on our end.
Yeah, and then our end is 9,600, and then there's no annual maintenance, it's included in our annual maintenance every year.
So it just be one.
So it'd just be a one-time fee for 9,600. So I guess that makes it just under.
Are we looking at using record improvement funds for all this?
we have approached Mark Adams and talked to him about the Records Improvement Fund, and my impression from that is that there may not be funds available.
I'm back here, so it's,
Oh,
I'm hiding as much as I possibly can. There is money in records improvement, although it's dwindling down. Usually every 4 years, we receive a large chunk of money from Recorder of Deeds, and we're no longer going to be receiving that. So I'm leery about what we spend that records improvement money on and how we go about deciding what projects to tackle. So it's kind of something I want to continue the discussion. We have a records improvement meeting coming up in October that we should discuss that a little bit. But, you know, there is some money there. I think when I did speak to Jason about it, I suggested using some of Planetary's automation fund, which it sounds like that conversation has already kind of kicked off. So that's a good thing, because the initial project was partially funded by records improvement to begin with. So, you know, what Dave is doing is helpful, and the integration is an important part of records, improving records and that. So I'm not against using records improvement money. We'll have to bring it before the board and see if there's, how much funding is really available for that project and anything else that might hit the table.
But I'd say the majority of this will be coming from my automation fund. We have all the 9,600 definitely, and then, like I said, I have to run the numbers and figure out, we just did our budget for the next year, and we did put some money aside for this project in our automation fund. So we just have to get that number,
Yes.
and by the time it comes to you, we'll have that all.
This is on the third phase of this project. It's the integration with the court admin just happened. So from the Planetary system to the court admin, that was a $20,000 project that was paid out of records improvement money. So it's getting sucked up quick, and I'm just leery about how much we can throw at. Not that I'm, fully in favor of your project, and it's a great idea. So
Okay, well, my inclination would be is if the funds are available, records improvement can use those funds for this. That was my thoughts.
So we did check
Yes.
Dave's automation fund, and based on when we checked it, there was enough money to fund the project. If there were other outstanding invoices or something, they would have been caught, but at that point in time, there was.
Dave, you mentioned something about $9,600, but I don't see that on our page here. I see
It's-
maintenance and support of 4724.
That's the sheriff's scope of work.
Not the sheriff's, this is just the sheriff's here.
It is. We have to, and Mike, do you want to speak quickly about the API for paperless?
Sure. Again, just to build on what Corey outlined is, we have integrated with other solutions with other customers, so we're just going to modify what we've already done to be able to talk to the TeleSolve implementation, but they have the information back and forth, as well as accept e-filings back into the system once they've been processed and share some. So, yeah, there is a little bit of cost on our side as well, which Dave should have there for you, which is the $9,600. And that would just be a one-time modification of the system. All the support will be covered under the existing support contract. And if you want more details on that, the API, what we're actually doing, I'd be glad to talk in more technical detail if anybody's interested.
What was your statement you just made? Was it concerning Prothonotari's piece of this? Or?
Well, we had checked, I think it was, if my memory's correct, 30,000, there was more than enough to cover the 30,000 at that point in time. No, that's dependent on, we didn't check to see what other bills they were gonna pay through the end of the year or that kind of thing, but
I just have one outstanding invoice of $1,200. That's going to be paid out of that fund.
Plus we accrue, well, it depends. On a great month, we make 15,000, and on an average month, we make about 2,200. So and I think the terms, I didn't see TeleSoft's terms, but paperless terms, it's aggregated billing based on signing scope of work and then completion of the project. So what we don't have in there now, we will probably have in there at that time.
Okay, the 28,000, where is this coming from?
Dave's automation.
Dave's automation.
I
I heard something about records improvement.
Yeah.
They're both records improvement, right?
They're both,
The automation fund is different than records improvement.
But it's the same underlying theory, it's just different pockets of money. There's the county piece, then the recorder of deeds has a piece, clerk of courts, the voluntary, is there any others that have their own automation? Register, well, they all have automation funds also.
okay, I'm sorry.
We haven't figured out what the actual percentages are of what's going to be left after automation and shortfall, but
So we,
I would recommend that they work out that math and then bring it to, I'll put it on the agenda for the records improvement meeting in October. I think it's October 1st or 2nd. We could certainly give them time to do the math and figure out where the funding's coming from.
okay, but there is potential this could require general fund money.
Potentially, yes. Well,
Okay.
Well, it's already in the Department of Budgets, right?
well,
it is in our 2018, yes.
correct. And his money is restricted to be used at his purview. So he can assign what automation type projects it's going towards. It doesn't have to be approved through the records improvement fund.
Okay.
It's separate.
Yeah, so the automation goes at my discretion, but you're right, there may be a shortfall that we may have to go to records improvement to cover. But,
Or general fund.
or general fund, but, it's okay if I.
I think the goal here, whether it's automation fund or record improvement funds, is it not be general fund tax dollars.
Ours as well.
Or property tax generating funds. If we have other sources of revenue available so that we don't have to burden our property taxpayers with this.
Dave, just for clarity, so your automation fund, is that driven by,
Filing fees. If we get $5 for every filing.
so it's fee driven, not necessarily general appropriation?
That's correct.
Yeah, it's fee driven, and it's legislatively, just like the money that populates every other, the clerk of courts. We get a $5 filing fee, $5 fee, which goes to our automation fund, and it's solely at our discretion has nothing to do with county money or commissioner money. And so as long as and the limitations are vague, but it's basically to improve, automation or automation in the office.
But it's your automation fee is entirely fee driven, or is it?
Yes.
Yeah.
So if we do
Okay.
5 cases in a month, we get $25. If we do 1,000, we get $25,000. So,
Just to affirm, I believe Mike made this comment, but both vendors pace our payments across the project, so it's not due on the front end. And I believe, given the scope of the project, there would be a period of time that this would play out, which would allow the fund to accrue more.
Yeah.
And it was a splitting hairs, but I wanted to just comment that when you said that it's not the county's money or the commissioner's money, it's all the people's money, okay? My point is saying that, I would rather not burden our property taxpayers with this cost. And so we have other sources of revenue, whether they're fee-based or fine-based, that we utilize, that source of money. But at the end of the day, it's all the people's money. Whatever it is.
we can talk about that offline. I'd argue that point, because it's not. But it's not germane to what we're talking about. Obviously, Ron's office and my office are very sensitive to the fact that we don't want to, our budget is $148,000 less than it was when I took office in 2010. So we're very conscious of spending and not spending what we don't have to. And
I didn't mean it that way.
I know, I'm just clarifying. So I'm very sensitive to the fact too, and that's our goal too.
All right, well, I think it's a good project. I certainly will support it. Gary, any other comments?
Answer on one question.
Mike, thanks for hanging in there. Do you have any more comments?
I do not, but thank you for allowing me to call in. Clarifying.
Does anybody have any final questions, comments?
The only thing I would comment, the reason why we're trying to move it forward this time of year, end of the year, is we'd like to have it up and testing it by the end of this year, hopefully, so that we can go into effect the first of the year, next year, have it up and running.
And I'll be gone.
That's important.
But Dave, we can always invite you back,
Well, I'm never going to be far away,
It's
but
discretionary.
from official capacity.
Yeah. No, it sounds good.
It'd be satisfactory so that I understand it and I know where I'm going from here. We're going to look at, I'm going to ask Tina and Dave and Mark to work on where the funds are coming from and bring that back to you.
Yeah, that's fine.
So,
And I assume it'll be the subject of the records improvement meeting.
Yeah, which is next week or the week after?
First week of October, I believe.
We'll take action.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks. Very good.
Thank you.
Have a great day, everybody.
Thank you, Mike.
Bye.
I sent Candy an email.
See you guys.
Good day.
Thanks,
Ladies.
Let us go first.
Thank you.
Sandy, what is next?
Bob Ritter,
Other business.
yeah, he's going to lead a discussion on managed care. And then everybody else will join in
Okay.
regarding the packet.
Okay.
Hello. Good to see you. Been a little while. Yeah, we attended most recently the PACA convention, and I thought it was a very, very good set of sessions. It was a wide variety of topics. The speakers were also varied. We had state representatives, we had representatives of the MCOs. There were a number of attorneys, a number of accountants, registered dietitians. There was a handful of different speakers. I think the theme of the conference can certainly be seen in some of the titles and descriptions of some of the sessions, such as nursing facilities under siege, corporate compliance was a big one, The only thing certain is change, QAPI, which is quality, in addition to the managed Medicaid. So again, it was wide variety, a lot of speakers, a lot of information that was thrown out at us. A little bit about the managed Medicaid. Again, those topics were primarily spoken on by the attorneys, by the accountants, the state, and the MCO folks. And I think we are probably blessed and very fortunate that we're in the last group to be brought into this. I think for me, this set of meetings hammered that home. I mean, because they are not ready. This is not, in my opinion, this is not ready to go for a lot of reasons. There's a lot of things that are still left unpublished. The attorneys, a number of the attorneys, and one of them was Steve Montesor, who was a panelist who happens to be one of our collections attorneys. And I spoke to him after one of the sessions. And a lot of the legal counsels are recommending to providers that they not sign the current agreements, which they're not really agreements, in their current form. And I mean they're not agreements as in the legal counsels are saying you don't have the items required to call these things contracts. The provider duties are not spelled out at all, and the reimbursements are not mentioned at all. And what I got was from the MCOs here signing was kind of the theme that we were hearing, and that's what the Southwest right now is dealing with. They've just been given a bunch of papers by the MCOs and told to sign them. And legal counsel is telling them not to sign them until after the rates are published by the state and after the duties of the providers are finally spelled out and put in paper. So that's why there were so many facilities I was hearing in the Southwest that weren't signing. And that's I guess why now is because they're being recommended not to. They are, the state has recently sent copies of their agreements with each MCO to CMS, to the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid, for approval. So they're not, so even those agreements that the state currently has with the MCOs are not in final approval yet. Memory was it was going to be several weeks before CMS would probably come up with some final words, approvals, amendments, or whatever to those. The state has their rate floor amounts that I don't remember hearing that they had been formally published yet. Thus, the MCOs haven't put them in the agreements because I don't think anything has been finalized. So they're still up in the air, even at this hour, on what the rates are going to be. They are recommending, of course, the legal guys are recommending that the providers get legal counsel or they get negotiating assistance because of the complexity of these MCO agreements. And one of the issues that I talked to Steve Montesor about was that each one of the agreements were different. So each provider is going to have to deal with each one of the MCO agreements, and they're all different. Some of the things that are still uncertain were such things as the billing, claims, rates. None of these things have been determined, and they're all going to be totally different per each MCO. So again, it was the attorneys, generally legal counsel, recommending assistance to the providers, and that seemed to be a common theme throughout, of course, most of the sessions. They also were saying that emphasis should be put on the initial negotiations to get the most favorable rates that we will be able to get, because these will be the ones that are set for the first several years, first 3 years of the contracts. And then after that, you can go up, down, right or left, or whichever. But it didn't appear that there was going to be a lot of wiggle room. Again, the MCOs are like, here it is, sign it, and they don't want any more talk on the subject. I also talked to Steve Montesor about the appeals process for the state. From what I got, is basically in all three cases are washing their hands in any dispute resolution. The state is not going to be any a part of it, which I said to Steve, well, how is it that a party of the contract is going to have the authority to jurisdiction over dispute resolution when they're a party to the contract? And he said that is one of the legal issues that's out there, is how can they, be the dispute resolution and they're a party to the contract. So there are a number of things that they haven't ironed out yet. I did find out about providers. Any provider that currently is giving service to Medicaid residents are going to have to fill out an 11 to 12 page application, provide the normal credentialing to each individual MCO. And that may force some of the providers out of the gate. They may just decide that they're not going to do Medicaid business. I can't say for sure, but I can say that probably would be something that some providers will look at. And that's all providers, that's not just physicians, that's all providers that do Medicaid business. That's a basic overview, that's what I got. So not that we should still be in a wait and see, we still have the luxury of a little bit of time. Things I think will be much clearer after January, and we'll see where they go. But there's still a lot that is yet to be determined. There's yet to be decided.
Virtually all of these issues that are pending are simply because they're first, right? The Southwest. So by the time we get into it, which is the end of the following year.
Correct, 19.
Or the beginning of the
Yeah.
year. Those pending questions should all be resolved, correct?
I would believe they would have to be by that time.
They just may not be resolved in the way we'd like, but
Yeah. I think they rolled this out.
it'll be a different set.
Yeah, they rolled it out faster, I think, than maybe what they should have, because to me, I would have had all of this done and spelled out, contracts done, rates ready, and said, okay, here it is. They didn't do that. So they're putting out what I would call a half-baked document in hopes that they get as many people to sign it as they can, and they'll fill in the blanks later. That's my opinion. I think that's what they're doing.
In Western PA, they're still to be up and running by 1/1, correct?
I'm sorry?
They're supposed to start 1/1, correct?
That is
In Western
correct.
region.
Yes, sir. 1/1 of 18. That is still the rollout start date for Southwest.
Okay, Southwest.
Southwest,
Thank you.
right. That's 14 counties, I believe it was. Yeah.
So would you list for us, which of the issues that are pending need to be resolved for us to really start formulating our managed care plan in earnest?
I would say the two that I mentioned was we need to know what our duties as the provider is going to be. What are you going to expect me to do? That's not spelled out according to the attorneys that spoke and I talked to. The other one is how much you can pay me. It's the contractual part. If I don't know what I have to do and I don't know what I'm going to get reimbursed, to me, that's the biggest thing right there. What do I have to do and what are you going to pay me to do it?
So now some of the information we had earlier was that essentially those rates were going to be dictated. There wasn't a negotiation, but we've also heard today as well as earlier that there would be negotiation and aggressive negotiation was the way to go. So that seems like a pretty stark choice for us. What's the current deal?
I think it's hard to say, and I only hesitate because we could play hardball and say to the MCOs, this is what we want. But if they get 25, 30 other nursing homes to jump in the boat right out of the gate, then our bargaining power pretty much goes away. But if we're one of 3 or 4 that they have, quote, in their network, then they'd be more willing and apt to deal with this. I think it's probably the same is that at the moment, I don't think we're gonna have a lot of room to dictate. I think they're just gonna say, here's what we're offering. They might have a little negotiation here or there, but I don't think it's gonna be a whole lot. That's my feeling, because that's what I heard is, here, sign it. If that's their mentality for that, then their mentality for the rates is probably gonna be the same.
But Bob, the rate that we're talking about that we don't know yet, that for us would not go into effect until 2020.
No, 2019, January 1.
I thought there was a year delay or something. Maybe I misunderstood on the rates.
I did, yeah, and then I think it starts this January in the west, and then the southeast in the middle of next year. Is that right?
I think it's I could be wrong. I think it's the middle of next year for the east.
Yeah.
And then we're
January
1 of 19.
Yeah, no, I know, but I thought I had read somewhere that there would be a year delay on the actual rate. And again, I probably misunderstood something.
I cannot honestly, I can go back and check that.
No, it's okay.
Well, who is this Steve Montessor?
Steve Montessor is an attorney, and he's actually our collections attorney. We use him out of the business office on collection matters.
So in your opinion,
Is he from around here?
Yes, sir, I believe he is. Yeah, he's local.
what are the things you think we should be working on right now?
With managed care, or because do have some compliance issues, the corporate compliance and the CLOPI, we have deadlines for all of those. But managed care, for instance, I talked to Brad the other day about not knowing what we're doing with the tower building. I talked to Brad about a beautification project, 2-year, 3-year plan. I'm thinking we're gonna have to look at other revenue sources. My gut tells me we're not gonna get good rates with the managed Medicaid, managed care. So I'm thinking we're gonna have to beautify the towers the best we can. We're gonna have to market, we're gonna have to advertise private pay. We're gonna have to look at other revenue streams, other avenues for pulling in more cash. Potentially, if the county does not use the 4th floor of Claremont, potentially we could refurbish the 4th floor and make it private rooms. Private pay, private rooms, and redo the 4th floor. Just saying, I don't know. So beautifying the towers, I think, is number 1, and trying to attract private pay. And then looking for other methods of money. I mean, and at the moment, I don't have one, other than the private pay. That's what we're gonna have to do.
Are you aware that apparently we have a request pending to the Department of Health about utilization of the 4th floor?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
I've just semi-recently, within the last month or so, became aware of that, yes. It's pending, as I understand. There hasn't been an answer from the state yet. That was the last I got from Brad, was we have not gotten an answer back from him yet.
Okay, what's the hold up with that? Do you have any idea?
The last I heard, there was some type of drawing or some type of spec sheet or something that the state wanted that wasn't given to them on the first submission. That's what I remember. So I think that has been, whatever it was submitted, and now they're in a review process.
Okay, well, so if that is approved by the Department of Health, that option of what you just talked about, using the fourth floor or
Right,
something.
would not be viable.
Yeah, okay.
Right, so then it would be just beautification right now that I can think of. I did talk to Brad about a 3-year plan, $60,000-$70,000 a year over 3 years, and carpet, take down wallpaper, paint, some niceties, flooring, to spruce it up the best.
How does that increase our revenues?
We'd probably have to increase the mix expectation. We'd have to generate more skilled, higher occupancy. We definitely have to have a higher daily occupancy than what we've been doing.
Okay, so what can we do to increase census, Bob?
Well, one would be the beautification. 2, potentially, we could try, which I've thought about before but haven't brought up, potentially a second outside case manager, like the Lisa Spence person, put 2 of them in the field, and that's a pretty good outlay of cash. And again, finding other lines of business that we could do within what we currently have.
I gotta tell you, I personally had some concerns about us getting into other business, okay? And I think what's gonna be important here is how can we focus in on our core mission, and how can we, first of all, improve and keep the case rent ratio up, so that we can still attract the reimbursements that we need, whether that be Medicare or Medicaid. But what about marketing?
We could, that's another, absolutely, that's another avenue, is we could put forth more effort, we could put forth more dollars. I had talked previously about a media person, a specific media person to Claremont, doing the tweeting, doing the Facebook, doing our own website. You may recall a long time ago I spoke about perhaps a dedicated website to Claremont. These more easily found than what is now. There would be an outlay of money for another professional, but yeah, we could try to increase the marketing, the social media, outreach, more outreach, absolutely. That would be a possibility in my mind.
Okay, what's the status with the contract with Geisinger and, essentially providing for more referrals, to, if I understand, to Claremont? There was something about some kind of rates or something, and where's that all stand?
Right. Originally, when we received the Geisinger agreement back, which was now probably a month or so ago, I reviewed the rates. Those rates were extremely low. I passed that agreement on with the recommendation that we renegotiate the rates, please advise. Well, I had not heard anything about that. So where we stand right at this moment, I spoke to Pat Thompson, our business office manager, this morning. We went over some numbers, which we think are fair. I've got the name of a contact that she's been talking to at Geisinger. They're actually on my list to call this afternoon to renegotiate or try to renegotiate the rates that they gave us with the rates that Pat and I went over this morning. So that's where it is right now, so I'm going to be calling that.
This would be what Geisinger pays us
For service.
Folks who are in their managed care Medicare. For short-term rehab, right, primarily?
Primarily, but they also gave us a component of what they call custodial care, which for us is Medicaid. So they gave us two sides. They gave us a skilled rate, and then they gave us a custodial rate. The difference is we're currently, Geisinger is paying us by RUGs, which is the Medicare reimbursement through our RNACs, through the MDS. Their current contract proposal to us does not make mention of the RUG system. So that's something I need to ask them. Did you intend to do that, or what? And the other one is, my proposals to them are going to be higher rates than what they put in their original contract. I hope to get to them, somebody this afternoon, to tell them, here's what we need. Because just one case, right now, our Medicaid rate is $213.65 a day. Even at that rate, we're losing roughly $40 to $50 a day per patient, per resident. They wanted to pay us $175, which is even another $35, $36 less than that. So we would end up losing pick a number, $75 a day for what they wanted to pay us for taking care of one of their residents' patients in network. So that's where we are. I'm going to call them this afternoon with the information that I've got from Pat and I talked about, and I'm going to try to renegotiate the rates.
Sandy, you have any questions or comments? Or does anybody have any comments, questions? Start with Sandy.
Okay, Bob, on these rates. If people are in the hospital for a certain amount of time, okay, and then they refer them to CNRC. Okay, so say they're on Medicaid, they've been in the hospital for 5 days and they come to rehab. And you can get the rates negotiated higher. Will it stay at that rate until they are released, or does it drop?
As long as they're getting skilled service, we would get the skilled reimbursement rate. But if they go back to Medicaid or they go back to custodial care, then we drop back down to the base, let's call it the base rate. Right? We would get paid for giving skilled service, but when they go back to long-term, then we go back to the long-term rate.
That's all I have.
Thanks. Anybody else have any comments, questions?
Just one more thing, I'm sorry, and because I would like to hear from others who attended the conference, but I wanted to ask a question. In terms of, these rates being too low, isn't just increasing our census though, doesn't that help the bottom line?
It would help the bottom line, but in the case of the 170, yeah, something is better than nothing, absolutely. But in the long term, we're already losing $40 to $50 a day at $213.65. If I take somebody at 175, now I'm losing $75 a day.
Yeah,
So your point's taken. I mean, as my daddy used to say, boy, something's better than nothing. That's true, but the loss is still there.
Right, okay. In terms of the total cost of the operation, I understand.
Right, and then it depends on the acuity, the severity of illness, the spell of illness that we're taking care of. If it's heavy care, then we're really losing.
One other question, Bob. Right now, do you guys have a strong marketing plan? I mean, do you have one in place?
We do, and I know Helen spoke to me, and she said that she was going to come over and give you, we have the outline, and she has the steps to go with each one of the topics. The marketing plan that we submitted, the 3-year marketing plan, was just an outline. It was, we're going to do this, this, and this. But she's got the in-betweens. She's got the actual tasks under each topic. Yeah. And that's something else that we can do. I mean, we could effectively increase the marketing budget here in year 2 and year 3 from what we've already planned. which we could get more visibility, more TV, more radio, that we had a little bit of radio, and so maybe we could expand it that way as well with a little more outreach.
I'm curious, anybody else from the conference who would like to, or attend, might want to comment anything you learned or you brought back as a result of the attendance of the conference?
I'll talk about the rate floor a little bit. The reason the rates haven't been set is because the timeline hasn't finished. I'm sorry, I have a cold.
They're all sick, by the way.
Yeah, that's it. And so the rate floor for the people that are going live January 1st, 18 is the calendar year before. And it's based on the case mix index. Ours will be 2018, so it is in our best interest to increase our case mix so that we can get our floor up. So that, do you want to go further with that? You understand it much better.
That's the reason why they don't have the rate floor for now, because they are looking at the 4 quarters for the case mix. That's why they could not determine the rate floor for this first rollout. For us, we have already established ourselves where we want to be with the case mix index. Now, what we have to understand as well, that our nursing home, we have Medicaid and we have Medicare. The rates that we're looking at is the Medicaid rate. In the Medicare setting, it's a different payment structure. So we actually have 2 pots, Medicare and Medicaid. Now, what we just need to probably look into is the negotiation portion. We can increase our marketing strategies, call in a lot of admissions, but for the Medicaid pot, we need to have a strong negotiator, because when they give out the rate, what is going to be built into that rate is also the MDOI. So we should not be forgetting all those extra things that the state is paying us, because the IGT will go away. So when we negotiate those rates, our room rates, plus we have to take into consideration the additional monies that we were receiving before and build that into our rate.
We also get paid for transportation. What else am I missing? I know there's transport. There's a number of different negotiated rates that are going to be in these contracts. So it's just not room and board, it's just not this. It's going to be 10, 12, 14 rates within the contract.
So our case mix index will be used to create the floor. We need to make sure that we're asking for the rate that will be the case mix index, plus those ancillary revenues that are being paid by the state. We need to make sure we're capturing all
Above,
of those.
right, we're capturing. Right now, what I saw, we're as high now as we've been since I've been there. We're at 1.14 as of what I saw yesterday. When I first got to Claremont over a year ago, we were down at 0.94, 0.95. So we've increased it by more than a point. So we're up pretty high for what we've been doing. If we could hold 1.14, which is above the average, we should be in pretty good shape. But like Jean said, we do have to maintain that for the 4 quarters of this coming year of 2018, because that'll determine our floor rate, I guess, on 1/1/19.
Our therapy pushed this very hard because they knew this was coming. And so they were on top of us saying, you really need these grand rounds to make sure people are getting the appropriate therapy. And so it was a concerted effort to create these grand rounds to get our therapy up. And I believe our measures have also increased.
Our measures have increased. The last time that we pulled our quality measures, we were just triggering on 2 aspects. Other than that, the others were okay. So we actually have 2 pots there working for us. So if our marketing is very strong, we bring in our Medicare A. The Medicare A is a different payment system. You still have the traditional Medicare, and then you have your the Medicare alternatives or options. So that would come into play. That's a different payment structure. Strategically, with us in the clinical aspect of the nursing home, what we really need to do is take a look at what are they looking for. And with that being said, we need to plan, like, oh, they're looking for a 30-day all-cost readmission. So we need to get that readmission level down, because that's always our bargaining chip. What they want to see is a low readmission rate, that is what we're going to give them. If you want to see low infection rate, that is what we're going to give you. So that is how we bargain with them. Like, we are meeting all the benchmarks that you want us to meet. So this is how we want the rates to be for this building. Now, the CMI is a portion of what we're going to be bargaining, but we have to take into consideration that the state is paying us a different payment. It's not CMI, but we can take that CMI into account, telling them that our acuity rate is high. The amount of nursing hours is high. So this is where we need to be. So negotiation there
That's
is
the negotiation
key,
part.
but we need to perform so that we can negotiate better. And then that will set us for the next 3 years until we know how they manage all the payment structures.
And we're also still in good shape now that we're back to 4 stars on the 5-star rating system. The G that the facility received 18 months ago or whenever it was has dropped off. And being that it dropped off, we received another star in inspections, which put us back to 4. So we've got the 4 back, and if they freeze the star rating system in November, we'll be in good shape, because anything 3 and above, then we're still in the ballpark to play the game with them all. So we're still good there as well.
What does that G stand for? You said just
G,
dropped off.
it's a G level jeopardy. It's a citation where there is jeopardy, where there's harm, potential for harm, or actual harm done. J is the worst. You don't ever want to see a J, but G is generally harm.
And that was expunged, so to speak.
It dropped off, right? It dropped off the rating. Correct. And that took us back from 3 back up to 4 because we gained it in the survey.
Yeah, we had been 5 until that. We had been 5 stars up until that incident.
Okay.
And we actually have an opportunity to become 5 stars because we have 4 stars for our health survey. We have 4 stars for the quality measures. We are at 2 stars for staffing and RN hours. And I've explained why we are at 2 stars because their basis for that is the day that they walk in the building. So the data that they are using for the 2 stars for our staffing is old data. However, for the opportunity lies in the fact that if we get a perfect 5 for our quality measures, we will get a bonus star. So right now we are at 4 stars, but we have 2 opportunities to shine. It's our survey and it's our quality measures. So what we are actually currently working on is our quality measures because we were able to get a perfect 5 for our quality measures. We were at 1045 or 1055 and then we dropped to 1035. So we are working on that because if we get a perfect 5 for the QM, then we will go back up to 5 stars.
It's on the point system. You do this, you get 10. You do this, you get 30. You do this, you get 40. And you add it up. And I think the threshold was 1054, 1053. And we made it by 1 or 2 points there. But 6 months ago. And then that's when we dropped back down, we lost a few points, and that's when we dropped back down to 3.
So the higher the point star rating, that would have a more favorable impact for us for negotiated rates.
Correct. Right, the higher amount of stars, 5 being the most and the best. And right now, we're at 4. And if they freeze us, again, in November, regardless, they freeze us in November, then we've got 4 out of 5. With an opportunity, as John said, with an opportunity to go higher.
When would these two opportunities occur?
We pull our quality measures quarterly. So when we do that, because if you pull it monthly, sometimes there is a change, sometimes there is no change. So it is quarterly. We just got the September 30th. So another quarter from now, we are going to be able to extract the data. But this QMs, this is driven by the MDS that we're submitting to the state on a routine basis. So that's why we are trying our best to be able to come up with good quality measures. Now, if you remember, I've given you a copy of those. The first areas there, if we get like 100, 100, 100, then that would total at the very bottom. If we go beyond the 1045, 1050, we will be able to hit the 5 stars for quality measures. Then that would give us the bonus star.
Okay, when do you think this could happen?
By the end of the year. The next one would come out, in December?
Yes, it will come out in
It
December.
will come out in December.
But we have to work on it. We have a lot of initiatives going on because right now we are 100% restraint-free facility. They don't want any restraints. However, with the new regulations, they have changed the meaning of restraints. They do not want to see alarms, the bed alarms, the chair alarms. They don't want to see any motion sensors. They do not want to see care phone chairs because to them it is restricting the residents' capability to walk. So we are trying to be an alarm-free facility. It is a very, very tenuous and very hard process because we have alarms. It's a lot.
Yeah, they literally changed their definition of restraint. That's what they did.
So it's like we are trying to cold turkey ourselves from the alarms. So our staff, we're trying to educate the staff. Alarms does not prevent the residents from falling. It tells you that the resident has stood up or the resident is already on the floor. What we need to do is frequently rounding. And when we make the rounds, we anticipate the needs of the residents. And that is what the thrust of all of the buildings here in Carlisle right now. Because by next month, we are going to be reporting to them if we have bed alarms, chair alarms, and they will consider that as a restraint, and that is going to go against our quality measures.
So we basically have 1 month plus or minus left, that what alarms we have left, we have to remove. And we're doing it unit by unit to try to keep a control of it, but by next month, we gotta get rid of all the alarms.
And the other thing that we are trying to do as well is educate the families. Because some family members will say, I don't want the alarms to be taken away, because their concept is, you need to alarm her, because she will continuously fall. So that's why we need to educate them and tell them, doesn't prevent your loved one from falling. So we have other ways and means to monitor our residents. But the regulations have changed, the language have changed. It is very, very, it's challenging to meet all the requirements. However, if we just know the paths, the critical element pathway that we are going to undertake to be able to capture all those things, we'll be able to get our stars.
And on that note, a lot of the sessions I sat in had to do with the new federal regulations and the policies and procedures for the facility. We are in pretty good shape with that. There's some tweaking we have to do with our policies and procedures, but sitting through the session showed you we have a little bit more work and stuff to do with that before November. But we're in fairly good shape with the new policies and procedures that need to be done for the facility.
And to piggyback on that note, during our board meeting, we are going to be updating you on the copy. Because this quality assurance process improvement thing that is part of the regulation, you're the governing body. So you need to know what we are doing in the nursing home, what are our goals, what projects we are working on. So that will be a part of our agenda. We'll make it short, but we are going to be presenting that together with our corporate compliance because that's part of their regulation as well.
We have a number of them that's running right now.
Well, I mean, this might be a stupid question, I don't know, but, if our number of residents drops, our census drops, does that have anything to do with our star rating? No?
The acuity, it depending on whether it's Medicaid or Medicare, just in general. It hurts our revenue.
Yeah.
Hurts our revenue.
And I did want to thank you for allowing me to go to the Packer in-service. We Packer conference. I do in-servicing all the time, so it's awesome.
Any other comments? This has been quite educational. Anything else, guys? For now?
Mr. Chairman, I just want to bring up, we had a preliminary proposal from Rapid Transit with respect to looking into the development of some service for veterans to get to the Lebanon VA. And my understanding is that they're looking for some seed money in the amount of $2,000. That would be the only obligation to the county at this point. I understand they did a similar proposal in the county of York, for $2,000 coming from the county. So, I think we should move forward with trying to develop this. I think it would be good for our veterans in the county. So I would like to make a motion to authorize the expenditure of up to $2,000 for Rapid Transit to develop a transportation program for our veterans here in Cumberland County.
There's a motion, is there a second?
I'll second.
Is there any further questions or comments on the motion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.